Ever pull one over on your siblings as a kid?
Yeah.
Maybe like convince them there was something spooky hiding in the closet.
Yeah.
Well, picture that, but on a scale that could change world history. See, that's kind of what went down with Operation Fortitude. It's this wild military deception campaign that we're diving into today. So picture it, 1944. D-Day is on the horizon, and the Allies are staring down Nazi Germany.
Mm.
The big question is, how do you surprise an enemy that's totally expecting you?
That's the real challenge right there, the element of surprise. The Germans, they knew an invasion was coming. I mean, they'd turned the French coastline into this insane fortress. They called it the Atlantic Wall, and it was packed with defenses. The Allies had learned the hard way what happens when you try a straight-on attack against those things.
Right.
Without some serious trickery, without making the Germans look the wrong way, D-Day could have been a complete disaster.
Oh, for sure. And I think, didn't they try some deception tactics earlier in the war, like in North Africa?
Yeah, they had some success in North Africa and Sicily, but this was a whole other ballgame.
Okay, so walk me through this. How do you even begin to fool an entire army? I mean, we're talking about hiding an invasion force, not just a birthday present here.
Well, they started with a pretty simple idea: make the Germans think the attack's coming at Calais. It's the shortest route across the English Channel. They called this part Fortitude South. At the same time, they were cooking up another scheme called Fortitude North to make the Germans sweat about an invasion up in Norway.
Okay, so two fake outs to keep them guessing. I got it. But how do you actually convince them that there are thousands of troops ready to attack when there aren't? Do they, like, build whole fake cities or something?
It was a mix of clever tricks and illusions, really.
Uh,
Fortitude South was all about physical deception. Think dummy landing craft made from canvas and oil drums, inflatable tanks you could carry with a few guys. They even used laundry lines strategically placed so it looked like busy camps from the air.
Wait, laundry lines? Really? That's wild. It sounds kind of funny, but I guess from a plane it works.
Yeah, it's all about what the German reconnaissance could see, right? They basically created a stage set for the German spies, a whole performance designed to feed their expectations. Meanwhile, the real preparations, those were locked down tight.
So they turned the English countryside into a giant movie set. Wow. Okay, so they had the visuals, but what about the sounds of a massive army? Surely the Germans wouldn't be fooled by just some fake tanks and laundry.
Good point, and that's where things get even more interesting. They had these signal units whose job it was to create fake radio chatter, like nonstop, to mimic a huge army gathering in southeast England.
So radio silence where the real troops were and then a bunch of fake chatter from the fake ones? Clever. But what were they saying in these fake messages?
Oh, everything you'd expect. Troop movements, supply requests, even complaints about the weather or not enough dentists.
No dentists. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they went all out to make it sound real, even adding in those little details to make it believable.
Fake complaints about dentists, that's thinking outside the box.
Hmm,
Makes sense, though. The more normal it sounds, the less likely they'd suspect anything.
right. It wasn't just random noise. They were building a whole story, a believable one, about a massive army getting ready to strike.
Okay, so you've got a fake army, but wouldn't you need a believable leader, too? Someone with a big enough reputation to really sell the Calais story to the Germans.
You're absolutely right, and that's where General George S. Patton comes in.
Ah, old blood and guts. Brilliant general, but also, well, let's just say known for his colorful personality and a few incidents.
Exactly. And the Allies, they knew exactly how to use that to their advantage. They made him the perfect poster boy for their Phantom First U.S. Army group, supposedly getting ready to attack Calais.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more about how they used Patton to sell this whole thing to the Germans.
Well, think about it. Patton was a larger-than-life figure, a real military celebrity. And after those slapping incidents, his career was kind of hanging by a thread. By putting him in charge of this fake army, they gave him a very public role.
So they used his fame to make the Germans think he was back in action, ready to lead the charge.
Exactly. They set up public appearances, staged inspections. He even met with King George VI, all designed to make it look like he was planning something big.
It's amazing how they turned his, let's say, challenging past into a positive. But wouldn't the Germans eventually catch on? I mean, Patton was known for being aggressive. Wouldn't they suspect something?
That's a good question, and it shows just how sophisticated the deception was. You see, they couldn't just slap Patton's name on a fake army. They had to build a whole story around him.
So they had to give him a reason to be in England. a reason that made sense to the Germans.
Exactly. They had to explain why he was there in a way that fit with his personality and his style of fighting. And it had to fit into the whole Calais deception, too.
So how did they do that? What was Patton's supposed role in this phantom invasion?
They came up with this story that Patton, the tank warfare guy, right?
Yeah.
He was supposedly training a massive armored force in England, this Phantom First Army group, and they'd use this force to spearhead the invasion at Calais, playing to his strengths. They even leaked info that Patton was getting impatient, wanted to get back into the action.
So they used his reputation as a bit of a hothead to their advantage. Clever.
Yeah.
But visuals, sounds, even a big-name general like Patton,
Yeah.
it still feels like something's missing. How did they make sure the Germans were actually getting all this fake intel?
Well, the Allies had done a number on the German radar network along the coast with bombing raids, but get this, they purposely left some of it operational.
Why would they do that?
To feed them misinformation, of course. They used a couple of really clever techniques called window and moonshine.
Hold on. Window and moonshine. Sounds more like something you'd order at a bar than military tactics.
Uh-huh. Well, they were pretty deceptive. Window involved dropping tons of aluminum foil strips from planes. These strips would float down slowly and create all these confusing radar echoes. It looked like a huge fleet was heading towards Calais.
So they basically blinded the German radar with tinfoil. Wow, that's actually pretty brilliant. And what about moonshine? Did they actually, sneak whiskey into German headquarters or something?
Not quite, but it was just as sneaky. Moonshine was a system of radar transmitters they set up on the ground. They were designed to mimic the radar signature of a big naval force.
So even on a clear night, they could make it look like a fleet was on its way to Calais.
Exactly. They basically created a phantom fleet out of thin air using radar against the Germans. It's like something out of a spy movie, all the secret codes and double agents and stuff. Did they use any actual spies to feed the Germans bad intel?
Oh, absolutely. Double agents played a huge role in the operation. They'd feed false info to their German handlers, confirming the Calais invasion and just really hammering home the deception. There was one especially good double agent, Juan Pujol Garcia, codenamed Garbo. This guy created a whole network of fake subagents, all feeding bogus reports back to the Germans. A whole network of fake spies. Talk about dedication. Sounds like they threw everything they had at the Germans to convince them about Calais. But did it actually work? All this effort, all this planning, all this deception.
Well, let me put it this way. A few days before D-Day, Hitler was meeting with the Japanese ambassador, Baron Hiroshi Oshima. Hitler, he was totally convinced the main invasion was going to be at Calais. He even dismissed any landings in Normandy as a distraction. He actually said, if the Allies invade in Brittany or Normandy, we know it's just going to be a feint because the real invasion will be coming across the Pas de Calais sometime afterwards.
Wow, talk about being overconfident. That's what good deception can do, I guess. Make your enemy believe whatever you want them to believe. Still, it's kind of hard to believe Hitler fell for it so easily.
Yeah.
Are there any close calls, times when the Germans almost figured it out?
Oh, there were definitely some tense moments. One time, a German reconnaissance plane spotted a big convoy of trucks in southeast England, and those trucks shouldn't have been there, according to the intel they had on this Phantom Army.
Uh-oh. That's not good. What happened? Did they scramble to hide the trucks?
Luckily, the guys in charge of the deception were quick on their feet. They told the Germans the trucks were just part of a training exercise, moving supplies around.
So they basically talked their way out of it? That's pretty smooth. But it makes me think about the other part of Operation Fortitude. Fortitude North, the one aimed at Norway. What was going on up there? Were they using dummy armies and fake radio stuff too?
Fortitude North was a different kind of operation. While Fortitude South was all about physical deception, Fortitude North was more about misinformation and messing with their communications.
Okay.
Norway's geography made it tough to do a large-scale physical deception, so they focused on making it look like a threat on paper and over the airwaves.
So instead of fake tanks and laundry lines, they just fed them bad intel and radio chatter.
You got it.
Yeah.
They created fake units, made up radio traffic, even leaked false info through double agents. They wanted the Germans to believe a big force was about to invade Norway.
So they basically planted a whole fake army in the minds of the German high command. That's bold. Did they have a general in charge of this phantom army like Patton in the South?
They didn't have a figurehead as big as Patton, but they did invent a whole new division, the 58th Highland Division. Even gave them a fake insignia with antlers and everything. They even had fake patches and documents to make it all look real.
Wow, they really thought of everything.
Yeah.
And did the Germans buy it? Did they send any troops to Norway because of this?
They totally fell for it. The Germans kept a huge garrison in Norway throughout the war, scared of an invasion that never came. They even moved troops and resources from other places, including France, to beef up their defenses in Norway, really weakened their overall position.
So by creating these two fake-outs, Fortitude South and Fortitude North, the Allies basically tricked the Germans into defending against threats that didn't even exist.
That's the power of strategic deception. By controlling the story and giving the Germans carefully crafted misinformation, the Allies were able to shape how they saw the threat. They even influenced their decisions.
It's crazy to think about the psychological impact of all this. The Germans must have been on edge all the time, trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't. But beyond the impact on D-Day itself, did Operation Fortitude have any lasting consequences? Did it change how wars were fought?
Absolutely. Operation Fortitude wasn't just some tactical win. It was a strategic masterpiece that totally changed military thinking. It showed how important deception is in warfare and basically created a blueprint for future operations.
So it wasn't just a one-time thing, it actually changed military strategy.
Exactly. The success of Operation Fortitude had a huge impact on how military deception tactics developed in the years after the war. It showed how important it is to understand your enemy's psychology, to control the information they get, and to use every tool you have, from physical tricks to electronic warfare, to create a convincing illusion.
So in a way, the legacy of Operation Fortitude is still alive in the strategies and tactics used by militaries today.
Definitely. Military strategists today still study and adapt to the principles and techniques they developed during Operation Fortitude. It's a reminder that winning a war isn't just about brute force, it's also about outsmarting your opponent.
It really makes you think that sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a tank or a bomb, but the ability to control information and how people see things.
Exactly. And these days, where information warfare is becoming more and more common, the lessons of Operation Fortitude might be more relevant than ever.
That's a pretty sobering thought. It makes you realize that the battles of the future might not just be fought on land or sea or in the air, but also in the digital world, where information is the weapon. But for all the genius of Operation Fortitude, I can't help but think about the people who risked their lives to pull it off, especially the double agents working behind enemy lines.
Absolutely. You know, their stories are really incredible. They show just how brave and resilient people can be, even when facing huge risks for something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, and it wasn't just physical courage either, was it? Think about the mental strength it must have taken to keep up the deception day after day, knowing that one mistake could ruin everything.
That's a really good point. They had to be so disciplined, careful, and always ready to adapt. They were constantly adjusting their tactics based on what the Germans were doing, how they were trying to gather intel. It was like this high-stakes game of mental chess played out in secret.
I can't even imagine that pressure, knowing the fate of so many people rested on them keeping up the illusion. It makes you wonder what made them so successful. What can we learn from Operation Fortitude even today?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is understanding how your opponent thinks. The Allies, they really did their homework. They studied German military doctrine, their intelligence methods, even their cultural biases, all to try and predict how they'd react to certain things.
So it wasn't just about making up a believable story. It was about tailoring that story to the Germans specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're trying to persuade someone, you need to know their strengths and weaknesses, right?
Right.
And another key thing was being able to change plans and improvise. The Germans weren't stupid. They were always looking for holes in the Allied story. So the deception team had to be ready to adjust on the fly, come up with explanations for anything that didn't quite add up.
So they had to be creative,
Yeah.
but also really good at analyzing the situation, always thinking a few steps ahead. It's kind of like playing poker, isn't it? Trying to outsmart your opponent while keeping a straight face.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And just like poker, there was always risk involved. They couldn't be totally sure the Germans would fall for it. But they were willing to take that gamble.
It reminds you that even the best plans can go wrong, right? Sometimes you have to trust your gut and make big decisions, even when you don't have all the information.
Definitely. And I think that's another lesson from Operation Fortitude, the importance of leadership, of being able to make decisions when things are uncertain. The people involved had to make some really tough calls, often with very little time or resources. Their ability to think strategically, to weigh the risks and benefits, and to act decisively was crucial to making the deception work.
It really shows their character and how committed they were to the mission. They weren't just following orders, they were thinking for themselves and making a real difference.
Exactly. Operation Fortitude wasn't just about technology or tactics, it was about people. It was about their courage, their ingenuity, their determination to work together and achieve something amazing.
It's a story that shows the best of humanity, even during one of the darkest times in history. It makes you think about how the lessons of Operation Fortitude could apply to challenges we face today, maybe not in war, but in our everyday lives.
That's an interesting thought. I think those principles of strategic thinking, being adaptable, understanding your audience, those are useful in so many situations. Whether you're negotiating a business deal, leading a team, even just trying to convince a friend to see things your way.
It's a good reminder that deception doesn't always have to be about tricking or manipulating people. It can also be about presenting information in a way that's clear and persuasive, tailoring your message to who you're talking to, building trust.
For sure. And especially these days, with so much information coming at us from all directions, it's more important than ever to be able to tell what's true and what's not, to separate fact from fiction.
Yeah, it's like we're all in this constant struggle for attention and influence, trying to make sense of a world full of information and misinformation too.
Right. And just like the Allies in World War II, we need to be careful, think critically, and always be willing to question what we hear and what we think we know.
So next time you're in a tough spot, whether it's personal or at work, maybe think about Operation Fortitude. Think strategically, understand who you're dealing with, be ready to change plans, and don't be afraid to challenge the way things are usually done.
Great advice. And remember, sometimes the best solutions are the ones nobody sees coming, the ones that surprise your opponent and make them look at things in a whole new way.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of uncovering the secrets of Operation Fortitude today. We've seen its brilliant tactics, its lasting impact, and the incredible people who made it all happen.
It's been a really fascinating journey full of intrigue and insight.
And for our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most daring and successful military deception campaigns ever. It's a story that shows us what human ingenuity can achieve, how important strategic thinking is, and how relevant these lessons still are in today's world.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We look forward to exploring more fascinating topics with you next time.